Жалпы әлемде 60 миллион жылқы бар.
In total, there are about 60 million horses in the world. 23 nations, including the Kazakh people, consider horses to be sacred. A Kazakh man dismounts a horse and greets people asking about the well-being of families and livestock. Kazakhs deeply revered the culture of animal husbandry. Horses were especially respected. Their 4 sound of hooves of galloping horses and their waving mane have been always reflected in the Kazakh history. The role of a horse in the formation of the civilization of the nomads was enormous. What does the modern generation know about the role of horses in the Kazakh society? Where were horses first domesticated? What is the role of horses in the life of nomads? Where are the Kazakh Karabaiyr horses now? We will answer these questions in today's episode. In 1981-1983, an archaeological expedition of the North Kazakhstan University under the leadership of Viktor Zybert conducted excavations in northern Kazakhstan, Town district near the village of Nikolskoye. As a result, 158 houses have been found on 15 hectares of land, the walls of which consisted of several closed parts. Household utensils made of stone, clay and bone were also found.
Мы увидели ровную площадку глиняную, а на нем большое количество зеленых пятен, зеленых травянистых пятен.
We saw a flat clay area and a large number of green spots on it, green grass spots. We immediately rushed there and saw a huge amount of artifacts on the rocks. I said, let's quickly open the pit. It must be a dwelling site. We found several hundred items in one pit. Can you imagine? The archaeological stretchers were filled with finds. First of all, there was a huge amount of bones of horses and other animals. Secondly, there was a huge amount of scrapers, silicone equipment, knives, and other various tools.
Кремневые инвентаря, скрипки, ножи, проколки, различные инструменты, их огромное количество.
Ancient tribes inhabited the territory between the Jaik and Irtis rivers and formed the Botai culture. A large number of stone knives, daggers, arrows, and spearheads indicated a significant role of hunting in society. In addition, harpoons, needles, bone points, amulets, and jewelry clearly show the diversity of tribal culture.
Наконечники стрел, копья, керамики.
Arrowheads, pottery, horse bones were found. These findings indicated not a single dwelling site where we used to find often 1 or 2 scrapers, a piece of pottery. There was a huge number of archaeological finds. Viktor Zybert concluded that the tribes that formed the Botai culture were the first to tame horses. However, American archaeologist David Anthony, in his 2007 book The Horse, the Wheel and Language, described the steppes of southern Russia and Ukraine around 2500 BC as a place of horse domestication. This is evidenced by the horse bones and cart wheels found in the village of Derevka in Ukraine during archaeological excavations. Zybert's discoveries in the Botai culture attracted the attention of the whole world. Thus, the struggle to rethink the origins of history has only intensified. After all, in those days, domestication of the horse for the average person was equal to space exploration. On March 5, 2009, the New York Times reported that archaeologists found not only horse bone fragments, but other objects as well. In their study, they provided 3 independent arguments that horses were domesticated by the semi-nomadic Botai culture. Scientists have analyzed the type and size of horse skeletons found in 4 locations. They were compared to the bones of wild horses that lived in these regions and to the bones of domesticated horses from the Bronze Age found hundreds of years later. As a result, Botai horses are considered the closest genetic relative to domesticated Bronze Age horses than to wild ones. The second group of collected evidence showed that horses were ridden because there are marks on the teeth found during the excavation which showed that they wore some sort of bit. This was proved by the American archaeologist and anthropologist David Anthony. German archaeologists Frisch and Benecke also disproved other hypotheses. They proved that the stains on the walls of ceramic dishes are traces of mare's milk. The year of 2000. The University of Exeter, a multinational team of archaeologists led by Alan Outram in a scientific study published in the Science magazine, stated that the Botai culture of northern Kazakhstan was first to domesticate horses. There were different opinions about the use of mare's milk by the Botai people, the formation of a worldview associated with horses, the discovery of objects made of horse bones with different patterns. There were a lot of questions such as, what were these bones used for? What role did they play in the formation of the worldview? It has been suggested that bones might have been the talisman of a particular tribe. They could be used as a special amulet by the tribes of that time when dividing land or livestock. In addition, the location of horse skulls on the Botai monuments gave evidence of the formation of rituals. In other words, the Botai culture has taken its place in the history of Kazakhstan as well as of the whole world. For example, when talking about the history of horse breeding, the Botai culture is the first to be mentioned, not only in our country, but also among our foreign colleagues.
Los Angeles Times газетіндегі
U.S. scientist Sandra Olson, in her speech in the Los Angeles Times, said the domestication of the horse was a seminal event in human history. All the major empire builders like Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan would have been nothing without horses. Horses were tamed in the 6th century BC. In the first millennium, nomadic tribes began to appear. Each tribe has achieved some success in breeding and taming horses. The Sakas bred herds of horses in vast territories from Altai to the Danube, and horse riding evolved as an art. From a young age, the Saka children and women mastered the technique of riding. After their conquests, legends about the centaurs spread throughout Europe, Asia Minor, the Mediterranean, and Egypt. It is believed that the portraits of female warriors in ancient Greek mythology, or as they're also called Amazons, were taken from the images of the Saka women.
Ғылымда бір үлкен тұжырым бар өзі. Жалпы мынау өндірісте қандай жануар.
From a scientific view, the animal which is in the center of production always plays a leading role in the worldview of this society. From this point of view, in the Saka period, the horse occupied the first place in military affairs, everyday life, and in the worldview. The horse was the main force in the Saka society.
Жылқы толығымен сақ заманның қоғамның негізгі күші болды.
The ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote about Scythians as follows. Their horses wear armor. They decorate those armor and bits with gold. Herodotus wrote, they considered the sun represents God, and since the sun was fast, they sacrificed the fastest animal in the world. They considered the horse to be the fastest animal in the world. East Kazakhstan region, Kazakh Karabaiyr district. Burial mounds are located on the right bank of the Bukhtarma River. Archaeologists call this place the Valley of the Kings because the Saka commanders are buried here. During excavations, archaeologists discovered burials here that haven't been found in other cultures. For burials, a mound was created with a depth of 4 to 5 meters and a wooden sarcophagus was installed inside it. According to the beliefs of that time, the horses were placed in the northern part of the mound with their heads to the east. The number of horses depended on the social status of the deceased. Up to 16 horses were found in some mounds. It is interesting that the head of the very first horse was set upright. A stone was placed under it and it was covered with felt to fix its position.
Геродоттың бір қызық дүниесі бар. Ол жазады,
Herodotus wrote that the Sakas buried horses of a sunny color. The main question is, why did they bury a horse with a deceased person? There are different opinions on this issue. Most likely, according to the beliefs, the horse was supposed to follow its warrior master. As the ancients believed, after death, a person starts journey into the afterlife, where he continues to fight, and therefore he needed a reliable comrade. In addition, the burial horses had a special head mask with mountain goat horns. Other items were also found. Horse harness, men's jewelry with the image of a fish. There is also a version that the horse for the ancients was a bridge for the human soul between the two worlds. A deceased warrior was believed to have hardships in the afterlife. To successfully pass them, they need talismans. A mask with mountain goat horns will give strength to cross high mountains, and jewelry with images of the fish will help them cross deep rivers and lakes. Archaeologists have found head masks of other animals such as moose, deer, and leopards. It was discovered that horse breeds varied depending on the place of residence of certain Iron Age tribes. When we went up and down the mountain ranges, crossed mountain rivers, the Wusun horses had no equal, said the Chinese prince Qazakh. In 307, Chinese commander Zhu Geliang ordered to build a large fortress to defend against the attacks of the Huns. However, he understood that the fortress alone would not be enough for defense. Therefore, the emperor carried out a military reform. He brought horses from nomadic tribes in the north of the country and used them to ride chariots. He adopted the basics of the martial arts of the Huns, as well as their archery skills while riding a horse.
Given
the gradual improvement of horse tack, the question arises how our ancestors rode horses without stirrups and bridles. We tried to remove the bridle, which, as you can see, has not changed much compared to the one invented by the Huns. Ancient Europeans used different methods of horseback riding without stirrups. For example, the Spaniards taught horses to bow and even used slaves to carry ladders. In Greece and Italy, mounting blocks were made of stones. As you can see, they are helpful to mount a horse. The nomads settled this problem even without using stirrups. As a descendant of these nomads, can I saddle a horse without horse harness? Having connected their lives with the horses, the nomads acquired a new level of growth and began to think about the further development of horse equipment. A bridle is a piece of equipment and harness placed on a horse's head to control the animal.
Қола дәуірінде негізінен жұмсақ ауыздықтар деп айтады. Ол қайыстан жылқыны жаңағы қалың қайыстан илеп отырып жаңағы ауыздықтың.
In the Bronze Age, horse equipment was made of leather, and it was also woven from horse tails. In addition, many parts of the equestrian equipment were made from a natural material, bone. Then, towards the end of the Bronze Age, in the middle of the second millennium, elongated bits appeared.
Алғашқысында енді мына қола дәуіріндегі сулықтардың өздері мына табиғи материалдан, яғни сүйектен жасалған болатын.
The stirrup is the last and most important element in the development of horse breeding technology. We can distinguish three historical moments here. First, a strong man with stirrups appeared when the Turks appeared in the historical arena. The Turks who lived in Altai invented the stirrup at that time when they were enslaved by the Juan people and processed iron. Domestication of the horse gave our ancestors unimaginable superiority at that time. Nomadic society was distinguished with its special military political structure, the main mechanism of which is the possibility of constant improvement of the fighting spirit and equestrian equipment.
Жаңағы көшуімен байланыстырады. Олардың жаңағы садақты тартып жаңағы жіберуіне ыңғайлы жаңағы.
There are several versions of the first use of a stirrup in the Kazakh steppes among Turkic peoples. The first version is associated with the resettlement of the Huns to the east. They already had stirrups. According to the second version, the rulers of the Eastern empires used stirrups as a convenient means of transportation.
Соны қамтамасыз етіп отыратын құрал ретінде қолданылған деген деректер бар.
The Sakas, who turned horse riding into an art and skillfully combined it with their military methods, became the most powerful empire of their time. The Huns increased their power by inventing a saddle. Thanks to the invention of the stirrup, the nomadic tribes wrote a new page in history. As we know, in that era, the tribes which developed and mastered the technology of domestication and improving the equipment of horses have already dominated. Thanks to the Kazakh horse, we Russians got our horses. Alexander Vilkins.
Демек, аттың үстіне
Our ancestors began to ride horses earlier than other peoples. We are indebted to the sacred horse who gave wings to our ancestors, allowing them to preserve the entire steppe as inheritance. That is why Kazakh worldview, mentality, and language have a different philosophical and cultural system associated with horses. A fast horse is both a horse and wings. Kazakh folk wisdom. There is a custom in Kazakhstan to present a foal to a newborn baby. The child's parents must pay special attention to the foal and take care of it. According to Kazakh beliefs, the behavior and future of the foal are closely related to the destiny of its little owner. That is why this colt is not ridden, it will never be sold, even raised, together with a child.
Дәстүрін өткізу қазақ қоғамында жаңағы ұл балаларды ерлік.
Thanks to the ancient tradition called basire in the Kazakh society, boys were taught to be brave, to fight, to absorb the national spirit, to follow in the footsteps of their ancestors. Basire tradition was created in order to expand children's knowledge of the world around them, to give them primary skills in housekeeping and understanding the economy, to instill love to work, to teach to revere not only material but also spiritual values. Most Kazakh proverbs are about horses. You can even create a dictionary dedicated to a particular topic. For example, a good horse is like the wings of a man, and so on.
Жылқы туралы мен қазақ мақал мәтелдерін қарап отырғанда сол жылқының мыңның үстінде жылқы туралы мақал мәтелдер бар екен.
From the age of 7, a child was taught to ride a horse. During matchmaking, the sons of nomads first of all were described as good horsemen. The Kazakhs used special child saddles, ashamai, that provided safe riding. Pouches which were similar to crossover saddlebags, korjins, served as a child's stirrups. The legs were put into them.
Атқа мінгізу, немесе ашамайға мінгізу деген салт бар. Оны сүндетпен қосып атқарып жүрміз. Қазір де бар, білеміз, бәріміз. Ал соны түпкі мәніне үңілсек, бұрын ойын баласы болса,
a child starts to ride a horse when he passes Sundat ritual. Let's consider this moment in detail. A child used to play, and then he has to be involved in the household because he turned 7 years old. Then he is seated on ashamai and rides a horse. He starts to herd out on the steppe. The boy is taught the basics of economy. he acquires a social status. In other words, the child is no longer up to games. Now he is a little man who must help around the house. Now he can safely ride a horse or a donkey. We know that the horse played an important role in the life of the Kazakh people, starting from the cradle till the grave. If a man died, his horse was covered with a mourning clothing, a saddle was put on it in reverse, and the animal had to carry the master's clothes. While mourning the death of a man, the tail and the mane of his horse were cut. The animal was killed on death anniversary. This ritual is well described in the works of Kazakh literature. For example, in the novel of Mukhtar Awazov, The Path of Abai, when Bourget died, the rite аттылда was held.
Спорттық ойын-сауықтарда азаматтың мерейін өсіреді.
Horses are adornment, camels are wealth, the Kazakhs used to say, since most of the Kazakh national games are directly related to horses. In particular, there are games as Bayge, Kokpar, Tenge Ilu, Kizku, Auderispak. This probably reflects the faith of the Kazakh people in their horses.
Ол деген сөз қазақ халқының жылқыға деген сенімін көрсетеді.
Kazakh horses have always been enduring and strong. Among the peoples of Central Asia, the Kazakhs and Turkmens, who are involved in equestrian sports including long-distance riding, organized races of 26 to 40 kilometers. The Kazakhs of Auliya Ata held races of up to 100 kilometers. Alexander Vilkins, 1885, Horse Breeding Magazine. The Kazakh horse has always been a favorite of all peoples of the world, said Austrian Lieutenant Colonel Dundeville in the 80s of the 19th century. Dundeville especially went to Orenburg steppe and brought 3,000 Kazakh horses for the Austrian army. In addition, during the First and Second World Wars, a large number of horses bred in the Kazakh steppes were sent to the front. These figures show that Kazakh horse has always been as strong as steel and in demand.
Көшкенде жылқайдаймын, ақау аламенен, аулыңа барушы едім оу, даламенен. Әридаша-ау, әридаша-яу беу.
It is impossible to imagine the way of life of the Kazakh people without horses. Songs such as Manmanger, Agbakai, Saltari, Karajorga, Kuljager, Telkoner, Koskuren, Kogdonen are dedicated to the horses. Sakensi Fulin spoke about them in the poem Red Horse. Mashkur Kapayev described horses in the poem Malsez Dala. Akansiri dedicated a poem Kulager to his horse. Isatai's Aktaban horse and Amangildiz horse Shalkaska became national legends along with their horsemen. However,
Фольклорда айтқанда, көне дастан жырда айтқан кезде жылқы міндетті айтылады, санамызда бар. Санамыздан бар, бірақ тұрмысымыздан өшті.
any epic song in the Kazakh folklore includes verses about horse. But we practically do not use horses in everyday life. Railway and automobiles arrived, but we must not lose touch with the origins. A new time has come, as well as the generation that has never ridden a horse. Nowadays, horse breeding is essentially the only way to preserve our national identity. In this sense, the horse has not lost its relevance. Every descendant of the Kazakhs should know horses well. Kazakhs need to change. 30 years have passed since we gained independence. I understand everything, and I don't urge everyone to ride a horse. I urge people to remember and pass on all the knowledge about horses from generation to generation.
Ол тек қана бәріміз атқа міну деген сөз емес қой. Ол мейізіміздің қазаққа болмысы қайта келсе, асаулығымыз қайта келсе деген сөз.
I am still under the impression that there is nothing alive quite so beautiful as a thoroughbred horse. John Goldsworthy. In traditional Kazakh society, wealth was measured only by horses. Only those who had more than 5,000 horses were considered rich. Thanks to the favorable climate and abundant pastures, the number of horses increased. For example, in 1885, Alexander Wilkins published an article, Notes on Turkestan Horses, in the Horse Breeding and Gardening magazine. In the markets of Orenburg, Troysk, Petropavl, Omsk, Kazakh horses are massively sold and in good demand every year. As a result, Russian traders and kulaks on the border began to breed Kazakh horses, he wrote.
Кулактар қазақы жылқы тұқымын өсіре бастаған деп жазады.
Now we can estimate how many horses there were on the Kazakh land. In the 18th century, wealthy Kazakhs had 5,000 to 10,000 horses each. But how many horses are there on Kazakhstan's land today? In the 18th century, a Swedish scientist, historian, and topographer, John Falk, said, rich Kazakhs have 5,000 to 10,000 horses each. As scientist Emmerich Hutenchopsky shared, Kazakhs have huge herds of horses. Rich people own up to 8,000 to 10,000 horses, and the poor have at least 20 horses. There was no census at that time, and therefore it was impossible to indicate the exact number of horses on Kazakh land. The first census was taken in 1880. 3.5 million horses were registered in Austria-Hungary, 3.3 million horses in Germany, and 3 million in France. At the same time, only in Orenburg region in Kazakhstan, there were 1.8 million horses. According to the data at the beginning of the 20th century, the number of horses in Kazakh land following the 1922 census fell to about 1.9 million. After the famine of 1931-1932, less than 300,000 horses remained in Kazakhstan.
Соған біз жете алмай жүргеніміз, мінекей тәуелсіздіктің 30 жылы болды ма? Оның ар жағындағы
Kazakhs dismounted the horse. Kazakhs haven't been riding for 70 years during the Soviet era and for 30 years during independence. I don't mean we have forgotten how to ride a horse. There are still people who treat horses well and know how to find a common language with them. But there is a huge number of people who have never seen a herd of horses, who have no idea what a horse is, what it means to dismount the horse. It means obedience. Do the Kazakhs have meekness, gentleness, and character? Yes, they do. We obediently go with the flow. Horses never displayed a trait such as obedience. To train horses, you need to know them in order to develop their character and form your own. Can we include this science into school curriculum?
Біз айтып жатырмыз, жаңағы жылқы бізден шыққан, бірақ өзіміз қазіргі кезде осы жағынан еш нәрсе жасамай жатырмыз. Өйткені мысалы
We say that a domesticated horse first appeared in Kazakh lands, but now we're not doing anything. Even foreigners know about the botai culture and how horses have been domesticated in our country. Now it is simply nothing more than a fact to us. We need to understand that riding horses is in our blood.
Бірақ өзіміз біз тек қана осы статистика ретінде ғана санаймыз ғой. Бірақ өзіміз түсіну керекпіз. Бізде жаңағы атбегілік қанды бар. Өзіміздің жаңағы қазақтың тұқымды біз бағалау керекпіз. Өзіміз тұқымды.
We need to revere our Kazakh horse breed, preserve and increase its number. But now we're interested in different European and UK horse breeds. We ride their horses, take care of them. It takes all our energy. But we are disrespectful to our traditional Karabaiyr horses.
Соларға мініп жүрміз, соларды баптап жүрміз. Біздің бүкіл энергия соған кетіп жатыр, бүкіл тіршілік соған кетіп жатыр. бірақ өзіміздің жаңағы қазақтың тұқымды, нағыз қазақтың қарабайырларды біз менсінбей жүрміз.
Civilization is flourishing, times have changed, and people have changed over time. Now the traces of horses between Altai and Atarau, Sari Arka and Alatau are erased by car tires. But horses still live in the Kazakh people's consciousness. The horse is reflected not only in Kazakh mentality, but also in the religion of our ancestors. For example, Surah al-Adiyat describes striking sparks of fire by hooves of the horse, which is ridden by the rider who attacks the enemy. Will people in the modern Kazakh society replace their smartphones for a horse, a chair for a saddle, stop their cars and give free rein to their feelings riding a fast horse? We couldn't cover our today's theme fully in one episode. Now the question is, do the descendants of the great Kazakh Batirs who left us a legacy of a huge territory ride horses? Where are the youth Magjan Jumabayev believed in? What are they doing? What do they know about horses? We conducted a public survey in search of answers to these questions. Let's listen to the answers.
Where did horses first become domesticated? Kazakhstan, but I'm not sure. Kazakhstan, I guess. Probably Europe? I have no idea. Kazakhstan? I don't know. Kyrgyzstan? Arab countries. Must be Mongolia? No, it must be America. Kazakh lands. What types of horses do you know? I know about Mustang, Turkmen's breed. I know about Mustang, Akhaltiki, Arab. There are Russian horses. How often do you ride a horse? Once a week. I used to ride horses in my village, but not now. I do ride horses when I go outside of the city. Once in 2 months. I did ride horses when I was a child, but not anymore. Once or 2 times a year.
Көп жас балалар атқа міну білмейді.
Many young people can't ride horses. Not only urban, but also rural people. They don't even know how to place a foot in the stirrup.
Қай аяқты қай үзеңгіге салуға білмейді.
These are the results of the survey. The answers to the questions were funny. Unfortunately, many young people are immersed in European values and look down on others. As a result, there are less people who are proud of their history and literature. We have presented you only facts and evidence to be proud of it. It is within your discretion to think about the rest. This is not the end of this story about the merits of spirited horses. In the following episodes, we will talk about Kazakh Karabaiyr horses, the importance of our traditions, and the benefits of horses for human health. Stay tuned to Qazakh TV.